Okay, so this chapter is innocently called Picking Flowers. In the distance, Joss could hear someone humming. The sound was soft and sweet and reminded him of home. Though he was certain it had been night just a moment before, daylight filled the clearing now, illuminating every inch of the forest as far as he could see. Standing, Joss followed the lyrical sound of the humming until he came upon a field of wildflowers. A young girl was crouched in the middle of the field, plucking purple flowers from the ground and placing them in a bunch grasped tightly in her left hand. Her blonde curls were pulled up in a ponytail that just barely brushed against her tan skin. She was wearing a yellow sundress that reminded him of the color of his mom's kitchen. He knew the girl, but feared speaking her name out loud, because something was wrong with this scene, but Joss couldn't quite put his finger on what it was. "Cecile, what are you doing out here?" She turned her head to the side at the sound of his voice, but didn't speak. Joss wasn't certain why, but he was relieved to see her cheek clean and tan. When she went back to picking flowers, he crossed the field, daisies bouncing against his ankles as he moved closer to his sister. "Cecile, what are you doing here? Mom wouldn't want you out here, you know." "I'm picking flowers, Jossie." She turned her head up to the side again to glimpse her brother. Joss's heart skipped a beat. Something was on Cecile's cheek. A dark line. It looked like blood. Then he remembered. Cecile was dead. She was dead, and it was all his fault. He slowed his steps, stopping just a few feet behind her. His fingers were trembling. "Why are you picking flowers, Cecile?" "To take them with me." She turned around then. Once again, her eye sockets were black, soulless tunnels. Deep within those dark tunnels, Joss could see flames. When she opened her mouth to speak again, a large centipede crawled out. "There are no flowers in hell, Jossie." Joss shoved his sister away. He felt terrible for doing so, but he was so frightened he could hardly breathe. His chest tightened in panicked breaths, and he backed away. "You're not in hell, Cecile. You're not." Cecile crawled after him in a twitching hurry, her mouth oozing all sorts of insects, her eyes devoid of all life. She clutched his ankle, crying, "Oh yes, I am. And you put me there, Jossie. You did this to me." Her tears disappeared quickly as her mouth contorted into a grin. Inside her mouth were fangs, fangs covered in blood. So as you can see, it's clearly a romantic comedy. And there are sparkly, fluffy bunnies and unicorns all through the entire book. I've been told before, wow, the Vlad books got darker as you went on. Yeah, I continue that trend. So I really like dark books, and I feel like they're interesting, and they really show us what people are really about, you know? So for me, looking at someone's nightmares shows me the torment that he's going through emotionally. So I was pretty excited about it. Now, before you ask, there are a couple of questions that everybody always asks me, so I'm going to answer those before you even ask. It's called my Auntie Heather Psychic Power Time, okay? Auntie Heather Psychic Power says you want to know if there's going to be a movie. The answer is maybe. That's pretty much all I can tell you about that. Maybe. I don't know. Okay, the next thing that you're going to want to know, you're going to want to know about Snow's eyes. The ones that have read 12th grade kills always say, what about Snow's eyes? We're going to find out. What does it mean? You are going to find out. You see, the fifth and final Slayer Chronicles book begins the moment 12th grade kills ends. And in that book is when I will explain all. So you are just not now. So, do you guys have any other questions? Because I'd like to squeeze in as many as I can before the fabulous Nancy Holder comes up on stage. Yeah?
What made you write this book? Like, how did you think of it? Like, the creative idea in this?
Okay, how did I think of these books? You see, when I was growing up, I was incredibly unpopular. Okay? I grew up in a very small town, population 814 people. I was the least popular person in that town. I don't just mean the school. I was that too. I mean the whole town. The adults didn't like me either. When I was picked on in school, and I'm talking pinched, punched, kicked, spit on, shoved into lockers, books knocked out of my hand. When I was picked on, teachers laughed or turned their head. Nobody liked me. So I hid away in the library, okay? And then when I grew up and I started writing, I said, if I'm going to write a book, I'm going to pour everything that is in me onto that page so that I feel better. Because I was like 28, 29, and I was still crying about it. I was so bullied, it ruined my entire life. So I wrote it to feel better about all the crap I went through in school. And there's a little secret for you, minions. The day that high school ends is when your life really begins. It feels like such an ending. It feels like, oh my God, high school's ended. That's it. That's it for me. I'm 18. Life's over. Not to mock you a little, minions, but how dramatic is that? Your life begins then. That's when things start getting good and you can leave it all behind. So I wrote it to feel better about things. And it worked, kind of. It made me feel like 50% better about all of those other things that happened to me. And then, after I got published and the book was out and people started reading it, I started getting letters and emails from you minions saying, hey, I'm going through that, or hey, I've been through that, and how much does that suck? And I relate to Vlad. That is what made me feel better the other 50%, knowing that I have people that understand me the way that I understand them. Anybody else? Yeah?
How does it feel to be popular as an author after going through the experience of being so unpopular?
That's a great question. No one's ever asked me that one either. How does it feel to be popular as an author after going through so much being unpopular? Well, you know, it's taken me a long time to be popular in the 8th grade. Feels good. Feels right. Makes me want to shove someone in a locker. No. No, it does feel really good, but the thing is that I will never forget where I've come from. And I really believe this is very important to remember, minions. Be a positive ripple in the pond of life. Everything that you do, whether you believe it or not, every single thing you do, good or bad, ripples out from you into the world. You will create more good by doing good, or you will create more bad by doing bad. Be positive. Do good things, because together we can make the world a better place. Yeah, honey?
What drove you to writing like the vampire books?
You know what's funny? When I said, a lot of people ask me, you know, she said, what drove you to write the vampire books? A lot of people ask me, oh, well, did you start writing those because, like, Stephanie Meyer was writing Twilight? Actually, I wrote these books before Stephanie Meyer wrote Twilight. But for me, it was really because I love vampires. You know what I mean? I love them. I was like this big, and I ate Count Chocula cereal for the first time. The cereal was gross, but the marshmallows were okay, but I ate it for the guy in the box, because he was awesome. I watched Sesame Street. Do you know why? One bet. That was my dude, you know? I love vampires. I was 13 and I read Bram Stoker's Dracula. Now, if you count yourself a vampire fan, and you have not yet read Bram Stoker's Dracula, I have bad news, minions. You are not quite a vampire fan yet. Run, do not walk to the nearest bookstore, the nearest library, get a copy of Bram Stoker's Dracula and read it, because that's really where it all began. Plus, there are a lot of really funny hidden jokes throughout my books that are throwbacks to that book. So you're not getting all the jokes if you don't understand that book. Anybody else? Yeah, honey?
Do you ever have nightmares after writing these books?
Do I ever have nightmares after writing these books? Never. Never. On occasion, if I take my daughter's 11 and she's like not at all like me, she's pink and tutu and sparkle and Justin Bieber. The one time I really have nightmares, because I love spooky things, I love the macabre. My office is awesome. It's black velvet wallpaper. It's a couch made out of an actual coffin. I have a human skull named Lucy. It's beautiful. But if I take my daughter to Disney World and I ride It's a Small World, that's when the nightmares happen.